Anyways, now that we're completely alone, truly isolated, we'll talk about dysphoria, sexual disability, transgender kink relations, poly relations, and I mean, I can't give you a solution, there is none, but I can at least give you some tips on how to navigate if you're experiencing it. And here's the thing, people who are non-trans experience dysphoria. There's this meme I saw, is that sexual dysphoria is interesting in that someone that you think is hot can think you're hot, and you'll still think that they're doing a community service by hooking up with you. And I was like, oh, that's dysphoria. It isn't a self-esteem issue. It's an image issue. Is that a busted old car? Bro, how do you even bust an old car out here? Holy fuck. Hey, welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, a show from the void. By the Gregorian calendar, it is currently the second day of the second month in the year of the Lord, 2020, part 2. 2-2-2022. Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. We come live today from Albany's Rural Cemetery. Today's topic of order, it's a broad range, and I'll probably ramble quite a bit, especially after I smoke. But we're going to talk about kink, polyamory, autism, ADHD, and just general queer and trans issues, because that is what voice that I can lend to the discussion. I feel that a lot of trans women are already very much oriented in these kind of circles and discussions. I don't really know if I have a unique voice in that sense, but at least as it compares to most of who I hear discussing these things, I think that most of the people I hear discussing these things are identified female at birth. More important than the fact that they're identified female is the fact that they're submissive types or some form of kinky queer. Whereas with men, or I should say men culture, like, because there's a difference between being a male and being part of, like, men culture, right? Men culture doesn't really define itself by its nuance. It defines itself by its uniformity. And through that process, it breaks down your psyche in such a way that it molds you into something that you may not even ever have had supposed to have been ever, right? It makes you into the dominant type, or it selects people not only into that by indoctrination process or trauma processing, where, you know, you just beat the shit out of someone and then they beat the shit out of someone in turn, but it selects out, and this is probably more important, it selects people out who are submissive. Submissive men exist, absolutely. They probably exist to a slightly less degree because of biological imperatives, and I know that's a very dangerous argument to make, but I am going to make it, than AFABs. And I think that is something that is universal, cross-culture, and objectively scientifically measurable. I really believe that. I can't cite my sources, so I could be wrong, but it does seem to be the case that more men are aggressive by nature, and femmes in general, and AFABs in general, it isn't to say that they're more submissive by nature, it's just that, first of all, they're wired up for it. Like, if I had a clit, oh boy, right? Like, they have physiological differences that go back hundreds of thousands of years to our common ancestors that biologically predispose them to being able to gain pleasure through things like pain, masochism, etc. And this is not to generalize all femmes. It's just to say that of the people that I know who are kinky, the overwhelming majority of them are female. Now, I think, personally, this is mostly a cultural phenomena, but I also don't want to ignore the biological, what's the word, predilection. I don't want to ignore the fact that there is a difference, and I'm not going to sit here and try to parse out which parts are which, but I did want to lend that opinion, which a lot of people find problematic, and I don't really care. Let me just look around, because a lot of this topic is not cemetery public appropriate, and I I don't really mind if people hear me, but it's out of respect. I try not to be overheard when I'm talking about this kind of stuff. So I'll just give you some general life updates in the meantime. It's been a while since I've uploaded. I've been dealing with some really pretty serious health problems, actually. Like, I hadn't been taking them seriously. I had been just kind of humdy-dumbing my way through, making my way downtown, walking fast. But, you know, then I found out that there was a whole host, a myriad of problems that I've been coping with. It's to the point now where I wake up 6-7 times in the night, you know, 3 times because of medical problems, 3 times because of anxiety and PTSD. And at this point, it's so normalized that my body's homeostatic rhythm is to, I'm very routine oriented because of the autism in the first place. But now the homeostatic part of myself that, you know, that I can't really control, you know, all the way to the level of my gut biome, probably. You know, the circadian rhythm is so disrupted that it's become normalized to wake up. And so even when everything's fine, I'm still waking up. And it's not good. It's not good. I apologize in advance for the extremely low quality of this recording, because my screen's broken and I'm using my old phone to record. Because to me, the topic today is more important than the qualitative... all this. Anyways, we do seem to be alone, so I can get back kind of on the topic I wanted to talk about, which is the difference between, well, not even the difference. I just want to talk openly about my experience with more than kink, because I'm not that kinky, even if I've experienced with it. I'm poly. And polyamory and ADHD as an intersection is a very interesting topic. Same with kink. Yesterday I watched one of my senpais talking on a Twitch stream about, you know, ADHD and how to navigate ADHD and kink. And they had some good advice, which is be very direct. Like, if you're dealing with a partner who has autism, especially, don't expect them to be able to satisfy your needs as a bottom or a top, I guess. Don't expect them to just inherently be able to follow the natural progression or arc that, to you, sex is supposed to take. And also don't be afraid to discuss verbally and articulately and with keywords in mind what exactly it is that you're looking for. What exactly it is that you want to experience, and for the reasons why, I think are equally as important to the what. Other people may feel differently. Some people are more kinetically oriented, where they just want the impact, and I mean that literally. They just want the flogging. They don't really care about, you know, the verbal dialogue exchange. And for people who are more extremely oriented towards kink and subspace than I am, because I've only experienced it maybe a handful of times in my life, I'm more psychedelically oriented. Like, that's that's my space. And maybe what I should be discussing, instead of treading into things that are, you know, I'm intrepid to them, but I feel alien very often, and I think that's because I'm alien to my own body. But, you know, I was listening to these people talk about it, and, you know, I realized that overwhelmingly most of the voices are AFAB. And so I wanted to kind of give a switched up perspective of someone who, it's like, things are just very broken in my universe. But because they're so broken, I've had to learn what the system is and how to navigate it. Rather than intuitively, I've had to really study it. And especially because I have autism, so I can say with confidence that the best way to navigate pretty much any relationship in any regard is communication. Because without communication, you're going to end up in a situation where you can get hurt. And not only can you get hurt physically, but you can get hurt emotionally. And sometimes that pain can take a long time to soak in. You know, it may be a week after your bruises heal. And those bruises, man, they can, you know, depending on what you're doing, they can take a long time to heal. Especially as you age. You know, if you're in your mid-30s and you're still, you know, going as hard as in the paint as you were when you were 19, 20, it's like, there's no judgment. It still feels good, but you gotta understand your body's gonna take a long time to heal. And if you're 19 and 20, you know, it may take time for the emotional scars of what you do to yourself if you don't go into things with the right mindset. or you go into things a little bit too recklessly, and you don't discuss where your limits are and your boundaries are. One of my friends yesterday spoke of, it's not a matter of if consent is violated, it's when and how you approach what that violation was after the fact that really matters. I think that they phrased it maybe they could have phrased it a little differently, but I tend to agree with that, because there's no way that you could possibly push someone to their, well, I'll use the word existential limit and provide to them a service or, a love, and not have it go, maybe not wrong immediately, but weeks later when those bruises heal, it could be something that you're just like, shit, what was I thinking? And it's important that you discuss that with a good partner. First of all, picking a good partner, let's start with that, because I think that that's square one. Well, actually, I think that that's square two. But let's start with square two. We'll circle back to square one. Square two is picking a good partner, someone that you trust. Trust is the foundation of just about every healthy relationship that I can think of in every regard. And this is true in business. This is true with familial. This is true with kink partners. This is true with my feet against this log. Trust. Because without trust, where do you end up? I mean, you could end up in a river, going over the edge without trust. You don't want that. Trust is an interesting thing as it pertains specifically to autism and ADHD and neurodivergence in general, because a lot of the time, and this is true, I think larger than just these two things, but speaking specifically about these two things, trust is a really hard thing for us, disproportionately perhaps, because the way that we orient in the world, the way that we perceive the world, the way that we feel it, doesn't seem to be, and I can't describe exactly how, the same as neurotypical people. Hence the word typical. Now, I can't tell you exactly what those differences are, any more than I can describe to you exactly in nuance what the difference between someone with, more of a borderline personality is dealing with volatile emotions. But I know that trust is something that takes us, sometimes we are overly trusting, or worse, easily manipulated. And sometimes it takes us a very, very long time to trust. And so if you are dealing with someone who's neurodivergent and you're dealing with them with some of the sacred rites of passage in this universe, such as sex, kink, let alone money and relationships and, home building, etc., I think it's really important that you discuss trust foundationally. From day one of your relationship, I need to be able to trust you. I need to know that you're not going to deceive yourself or me by extension. Because without that foundation, and this is just universally good advice, without that foundation, what do you really have? Well, you may feel really good in that moment, but inevitably when things do go awry or when things go badly with your partner or partners, if you're poly, it's going to cause issue. And poly is an interesting thing to navigate when it comes to trust. Because, I have right now, and there's different types of partners. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of what those types are. You can watch another channel for that. But for me, I have my main partner, and other people will use different terminologies, perhaps. But I have my main partner, and then I have what I refer to as satellite partners. They're people that are they're orbiting, and they come around, and it's awesome. But we don't really try to ever screw that up, because it would just destabilize both of our orbits. And trust is really important. So, especially as it relates to ADHD, you have to be willing to know yourself well enough to know what your insecurities are, even if you don't really know where they're from, you haven't done the therapy process and gone back and found out what your childhood traumas were, how you were parented, or how your trauma affected you, etc. You know, different people trust in different ways. It's not a universal thing. And the more you know about the ways that you do or do not trust, like for me, I'm very insecure when my partner's partners start talking to me. It's just like, stop talking to me. Like, it's not a triangle, dude. Like, I'm stationed here, that's my partner, and the fact that they're also your partner doesn't really concern me. And that's a discussion that I've had to have the hard way after I found out that not only am I jealous, I'm fucking territorial. Viciously so. Because it's just like, stop talking to me. Stop getting in my space. Even if my perceptions are completely out of whack because I'm autistic as fuck, right? I don't have a good sense of reality. I have a good sense of what I think is reality. Now, that isn't to say that autistic people don't understand reality, because we do. Actually, I'd say we understand it sometimes better than the neurotypicals, but only sometimes. And in this case, it was important that I pumped the brakes a little bit, because I was out of whack. So, for me, that's just one example. But there's many other types of examples. Like, for example, do you want to include a third person in a poly relationship, or is it just poly insofar as, you know, I have one partner and a different partner? Or is it going to be a three-way thing? You know, in my personal life, I can really only emotionally devote to one person at a time, even if I kind of rotate the cast of the people that I'm devoting to. And so far, that's been okay for me. But to be honest, like, I don't have a devoted, singular partner that I, like, live with, right? Like, I don't have that, like, core foundation with anybody. A lot of other things precluding that. But, so, whether it's romantic or it's just physical, trust is incredibly important. And this is true whether you have ADHD or autism or not. But specifically, if you or your partner do, the communication is going to be twice, if not 3 times, 5, however many times more important. And especially if you have a partner who isn't very verbal. You know, a lot of the times people with autism, you know, they're fully mentally present, but we struggle with verbalization. Now, personally, I don't struggle with that at all. I struggle with shutting the fuck up. But you may have a partner that just in the moment can't articulate themselves. And consent in that regard is incredibly important to have articulated before you get into anything too deeply. It's the type of thing where, like, if all you're looking for is to just get strung up upside down and flogged, you know, or just as an example, if that's all you're looking for, right, and you have 3 people that are like, oh yeah, man, I'll do that. I'll definitely, we could do that. It's like, well, are you going to be able to communicate with me? Are you giving off any red flags? Are you using, you know, a tone and diction with me that is respectful? Or are you going to, you know, call me a whore before you even know who I am? Or asking me if I like that? In my universe, you call me that, you're getting punched in your fucking mouth. Like, a man calls a man a whore, you're getting killed. It's like, it's actually so outlandish of an insult that men don't even call each other that. So don't call me that, because, man, I'm too masculine, too male for that. And not to criticize men who do like it. Ooh, woo. So I think that's square 2. Square 1 is obviously, I think, knowing yourself. I think writing is something that people don't really talk a lot about when it comes to, like, kink, is writing. They talk a lot about communication, but I actually think that writing is different from communication. Writing is the process, in my opinion, of organizing your thoughts and actualizing, crystallizing, whatever word you want to use, your thoughts. Because without it, it still could be feelings, right? And this isn't to say that the feelings are invalid before that they're quantified or whatever, again, whatever word you want to use. It doesn't invalidate them. You're still feeling them. You're still thinking these thoughts. You're still existing and perceiving these thoughts. But until you write them, you're not going to be as lucid or cognizant of these things until you do. And so I think the core is getting to know yourself. And so I think that for beginners, which is not really my target audience, or maybe it is, I think that it's really important to write down what it is you think you want and why. Because without it, especially if you struggle with communication, when it does come to this to the discussion of trust, you won't even know what you need to trust people with. You'll only, can I trust you? That's a good question. That's a very good question, actually. Can I trust you? But the thing is you need to be able to follow that up with pretty much everything else. Otherwise, it's going to be a matter of, like, time before something does go wrong. And you experience something that maybe could traumatize you. Or maybe brings to the surface something that, you had repressed without realizing it. Or something that is, childhood trauma. Like for me, and this is a very personal story I'm about to tell, my mother was horribly abusive to me. Horribly so. She would dig her claws into my fucking neck and sit on me when I was too young to struggle out from under her grip. And she would belittle me and insult me and lock me in rooms and hit me with spoons and make me eat soap. She would force food down my throat when she didn't like the food that I was, just horrible things, right? And when I've had those things done to me first of all, I'm not really into degradation, but when I've had those things done to me playfully, like, I didn't feel overwhelming joy. I felt terrified and overwhelmed. And it wasn't even until the scene had ended that I was able to articulate, like, wow, this does not spark joy. Because I hadn't done the work requisite to get in that deep with myself, let alone my trusted partner. It wasn't like they were trying to violate me. It's more that I violated myself by not assuring them and myself that what I was doing was not only safe but desirable. And until you have both of those things, safety and desirability, there really can't be any further exploration of positive emotion. Especially when those positive emotions are kind of maybe explicitly linked with negative emotions or pain. Especially if you're like a masochist, which I am not. Look at this thing. Bam! I'm gonna make an effigy in a moment. I'm gonna make like this little snowman, I'm gonna kick it. Look at this little bug. I caught it. Look. Whoop! And he's gone. So those are my thoughts. So let's move on to part 2, which is, because most of what I've been talking about is how you bottom, right? How you get in with what you want out of things. But it's mostly, from what I've been speaking of, the discussion from the submissive point of view, or from the bottom's point of view, of what you're having done, not necessarily to you, that's maybe the wrong way to quote it or say it, but the stuff you're having done to you. Whatever that stuff may be. Man, people are into some weird shit, man. Just look on any porn site. And there's no criticism. I mean, some of it's I think a little sus, but who am I to judge? I think the better discussion to have, that I should be concentrating on, and we're going to move on to part 2 now, is dysphoria. Because, oh boy, what a doozy. And you think ADHD is hard to navigate, wait till you hear about dysphoria. Dysphoria is not unique to transgenders. It's not really even unique to queer people. Dysphoria is the opposite of euphoria. I don't know if that's how I conceptualize it. I don't know if that's actually what it is, but that's how I think of it. Check this out. No! Ugh. Lame. Yeah. Dysphoria. Oh boy, what a doozy. How the hell do you navigate dysphoria? First of all, how do you navigate a body which isn't your own? I mean, that's how I feel. I don't know if that's how other trans people feel, but it is how I feel. Because for every single thing that I desire to have happen to my body, or that I think I desire to have happen to my body, I can accomplish maybe 1/10 of that. Now again, I'm not a masochist. You can scratch my back up all you want. I'm not into it. Maybe what I'm into is, I wouldn't even know. Because dysphoria. Dysphoria is a really hard thing to navigate. It's really difficult. I'm like struggling for words because I want to have sage advice like I do with ADHD. You have to be very explicit. You have to be very present in the moment and remind people verbally sometimes, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. Same with autism. You gotta be, hey, this is why I trust you, this is what we're doing. Sometimes you have to remind them. But dysphoria, man, that's a whole other story. I'm going to smoke a bowl, organize my thoughts, and we'll be right back after this. Thanks for joining. This is Rainbows and Razor Blades, a show today from Albany's Rural Cemetery in Manans, New York. It is the second day of the second month, year of the Lord, 2022. Wishing I could run away, but I wouldn't know where to go or what to say. Wish I could disappear like a rain cloud, morning fog, UFO, forest deer. Wish I had just a couple more friends. I'd go out and drink a couple more beers and meet a wife. Wish I could read your mind like a mirror or my daddy in the NSA. Wish I could hold your hand like a chainsaw. Fuck you, go away. 'Cause I'm a manic, depressive, fixated, religious grandiosity. Delusions of reference, preferences for someone to feel my curiosity. Wish I could get attention from figments in my imagination. Phrases of figurative language, figure it out. Symptoms of my anxiety. Panic attack code gets written in proprietary. Self-isolation, reflected narcissistic hatred. Withdrawal from drugs and medications, compartmentalizing misanthropic disassociation. I never made it to my high school's graduation. Singing, I don't need therapy. Turning to gaslighting bullshit, ADHD. I don't need therapy. Don't need your Prozac and bullets for World War III. I don't need therapy. Oh, wishing I could run away, but I wouldn't know where to go or what to say. Even if the beat stopped, I'll keep singing. Even if my lyrics drop, I'll keep dreaming. Even if my lungs are shot, I'll keep screaming. Oh, wishing I could run away, but I wouldn't know where to go or what to say. Rewind me, find me, I'll be playing at the cemetery. Oh, wishing I could run away. Figure it out. Figure it out. Figure it out. I'll be playing at the cemetery. Welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, show from the void. By the Gregorian calendar, it is currently the second day of the second month in the year of the Lord, 2022. We come live today from Albany's Rural Cemetery. This is part 2, Dysphoria. That's... yeah, dude. Same. Dysphoria is an interesting topic because very often in queer, kink, poly, all that discussion, trans people are involved. And I think this is because many of us are desperate. I know that sounds kind of shitty, but hear me out. I think that we're absolutely just desperate to feel good any way that we can. And we're already, like, we're so fringe, and, you know, we've been treated like we're fringe. We've been treated like we're... I mean, some of us have been treated really badly. We'll just leave it at that, and we'll save the rest for a different rant. But dysphoria is really hard to navigate. It's actually, interestingly enough, I've come to conceptualize it as a disability. That is to say that it is impossible to navigate. The same way that you can't rehabilitate someone with Down syndrome to be more intelligent. It just doesn't happen. There's something that you can be an ableist about it, or you can just try to show them some love. Now I've come to conceptualize the sexual expression of people who experience dysphoria as that those parts of those people, whether they're physically castrated or not, don't work. And they never will. And it isn't something that you can just try to outthink or outsmart or outmaneuver. There's no dodge roll button, buddy. It's just what it is. It's just a feeling. It's a feeling, right? It isn't physical pain, right? It isn't just that you want to be slapped a little harder or not slapped at all. It isn't that you want penetrative sex but can't have it. I mean, well, for trans women, it's part of that, I'm sure, for some of them. And transgender women's a problematic statement. That's something that I used to say as a meme, that once I started identifying as non-binary, I really started to believe. I was like, holy shit. But that's, again, another rant. Because I'm definitely not a trans woman. Definitely don't like this penis. Not a fan of it. Not a fan of what I'm missing more than I'm a fan of what I got. Or not a fan of what I got. Does that make sense? Like, it isn't so much that I, like, hate this thing. It's that I hate not having... And I don't even hate it. I'm absolutely heartbroken that I don't have what I need or what I want in this lifetime. And I never, ever will. Ever. It's just like, it's horrible. And I say it with like that weird like pipe dream in mind. Because I just can't accept it. I can't accept it. I wouldn't be able to go on living without some form of either rationalization or false hope. And in my head I'm like, well, I call it false, but it's real. And it isn't. But maybe it is. I mean, who knows, you know? Who knows? Like, my whole life could change. Welcome back to I let my former lover cut my bangs. Show from the cemetery. The dude passed, so... there was a place that I had figured out where it, like, looked pretty good. I forget how to get it there. That's not it. It must have been, like, here, maybe. How did I do it? Where's the camera spot here? I forgot. There is a camera spot here, I swear. I just don't remember where it is. Does that work? Look at that. So I had to rethink the problem. Because I was like, well, I should solve this like it's a dysphoria, right? Like, if I physically can't figure out how to make it look good up there, because up there there's no vantage point. There's no way to experience what I want. There's no way to share with the universe what I want. So how do I do it? Well, you break the frame. Instead of trying to figure out like which spot on this rock it could work, stop trying to think about just that rock. Start trying to think about everything that you can think of. Take yourself out of whatever box you're in and start thinking about a different reality. You know, it may be that you hit it and it's like you can't. There's nothing. Like, maybe there's a ravine. Maybe, you know, for me, there's a ravine down here that exists. It's just despair. So there's nothing down here. Any more than most people, and hey, who am I to judge? Any more than, like, maybe I'll guess, 77% of people, just on average, don't want things going up their butt. They just don't. No judgment. Either way, I don't care. And that's just a guess, right? I got no statistics on that, right? Any more than those people can make that pleasurable if it just isn't. You know, if you just don't like salty food, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that so much. There's a couple new notes in there. I like it. Can't anymore. It sounded really good though. Up we go. Welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, a very Christian show. I should have 2 channels, one for the normies. So when they ask, oh, what are you doing? Oh, this is what I'm doing. And then it's just like, it's what I'm doing. It's like a 5-minute video of me just being like, here's some flowers. But then like for the people who know, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. None of the same hashtags either. Well, I guess it would be kind of the same hashtag because like how long until, I mean, here's the thing, I could never, if people go looking for this place, I don't want them finding me, I guess. I don't think on YouTube yet I've made that mistake yet. Like, I don't want to tag Albany Rural Cemetery. Does that make sense? Because if someone goes looking, like if like a 10-year-old kid goes looking on the internet, like, hey mom, can you bring me here? I don't want him finding my shit. I'm an adult channel. And I keep it that way on purpose because I can cover a more dynamic range of topics that I'm not going to censor myself just because I'm here. I'm going to eat this pine cone. Ready? You saw me drop it. It was a trick. I was trying to pull a fast one on you. Make you think I ate it. You'd have to be crazy to eat a pine cone. Anyways, my desire to self-censor myself is really only in regards to audience. I want to restrict audience. Like, there's no need that if someone who wants to just, like, show their grandmother this place, they shouldn't have me as the second result, right? Especially if I get too big. And it would kind of be inevitable, right? I don't know. It feels dangerous to film here sometimes, given the stuff that I talk about. But I mean, like, it is what it is. It really is what it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it because I have autism. Maybe most people are underthinking it because they're tech illiterate and don't understand internet fame. Maybe, I don't know. We'll find out when we get there. Because I'm the first generation ever to figure this stuff out. There's no precedent. None whatsoever. Right? You can't look back 10 years and be like, well, how'd it go for that guy? Right? What happened when people found out his special place that he was recording himself? I'm not filming that content. But, you know, that's like the worst thing I can think of, right? I mean, besides, like, I can think of a lot worse things. But you have to pay me $5 to find out what those things are. Anyways, so like something like that, I would not film here. I wouldn't do that here, right? Because it just is asking to get caught for criminal activity, first of all, but it's also disrespectful. But does that same principle apply to quote unquote sus or unpopular behavior? Like if I came here and I only ever worshipped Trump, that was my whole channel, would that become synonymous with this place? And first of all, this place could ask me to leave for really any reason. They could just discriminate against me, I'm pretty sure, because it's private property. Private property does not really have to let you on its grounds. And this is private property. There's signs posted. There's a crew. Oh, you can't see. Hold on. Welcome back to I Fixed the White Balance. I think the snow, there's just so much white in it. It had gone too bright because I went from face to snow, something like that, I don't know. Put your face in the snow. Oh, I can't say the N-word. I was gonna do the meme where it's like, oh, and then they do it. He didn't do it anyway, so I'm glad I didn't do it. But it's like a TikTok meme where you try to like, every time I come around, that's another good one. Yeah, you don't even have to say the N-word. You can do that one. Every time I come around, it's like... Alright, we ain't getting the TikTok today, guys. I tried, though. I tried. I really did. I tried. So, what were we even talking about? I don't even know. We're so far off the path now. Trying to have a topic order, for me, is one of the biggest memes. Because it isn't what I am. I'm an absurdist channel. I'm a variety show. Wait, is that the cemetery? I guess it is. I just never ever see anybody on that path. Like, literally ever. I don't even know where that path is, really. We were talking about dysphoria being a disability. And that actually isn't really what I mean. Check this out. It's a locust tree. You don't want to walk into a locust tree. There's punishment for that. Unless you like that, you little slut. Now we're demonetized. Okay, so now that we're not making any money, we can be really honest with each other, men to men. Admit it. Man to man, I'm cute. You're jealous of my Jigglypuff hat. You wish you had rainbows on your hands. And I'm probably a lot faster than you. I could beat you in a foot race. So, screw you, buddy. You're probably better at snowboarding. That's fine. Shit, I forget which way we were filming. Now, I don't know if we're upside down or not. Someone told me something in the comment section. They were like, you kind of act like a 5th grade girl. I was like, oh, it's better than being a 9th grade boy. Because that's what I think I act like. 9th grade boy. I guess 9th grade boys are more violent and break more things and would like, for my male audience, that's another good meme. I don't even want to do it. It's too violent. And if that doesn't prove that I'm not cis, I got jokes for days. I truly got jokes. Days, bro. For days. There's this good band. It's called Days and Days, but it's spelled like D-A-Y-Z, I think. And then D-A-Z-E, maybe? I don't know. Something like that. It's a punk band. The person in it plays a saxophone, and the other person plays like a banjo, and then the third person plays like a washboard. And then they probably got a guitar guy. He probably uses he, him pronouns. Wouldn't really know. Never talked to them. Gender neutralizing everything is sedition against the church. What's the word? Not sedition. Heresy? I forget what they're calling it these days. Subversion. That's a good one. Subterfuge. That's another interesting one. I got no more. This is a non-safe zone. We'll be right back. Let's make an intro theme, right? I gotta get just like one short riff. Like 5 notes. We'll be right back. I'm the first generation that can do something like this. That can just, because I want to, because I have this technology, no one can stop me. I mean, they can try. They probably will succeed, actually. They'll probably kill me dead before I'm done with this project. But I'm literally the first generation that can do something like this. There's been people with cameras before that have done similar. Like Eric Andre, he's still my generation. He's alive when I'm alive. every single person that's alive today could, I mean, unless they're disabled or they have like a reason they can't do it, or they have like no access to this. But assuming that they do, they could do this. And there's probably billions of people that can't still, because they haven't gotten a cell phone yet, and they never will. I think about that a lot. People who will literally never get a cell phone in their whole life, who will never have a computer, who will never have the ability to like free range communicate endlessly and also have access to the infinite library of information that is the internet. Like, if you're like, billions of people alive today, billions of them. Imagine if every single one of them had like a cybernetic brain, and we could all, every single one of us, interconnect. Oh boy, what would happen when the servers were DDoSed? I think about stuff like that a lot, too. Do I want to fall into cyborg fantasy yet? Not particularly. I'm still kind of very grounded in reality right now, actually. I'm speaking very candidly about dysphoria and how it relates to not just who we are as people, but how we affect others as stories. If we are stories, how do we affect other people? First of all, that may not matter, but if it does, and when, especially when you want it to, such as in love, sex, relationships, that whole orientation of human narrative structure. Some people are very, very oriented towards that. Whether it's by biological, is the word predilection? I think predilection implies choice of mind or something like that, maybe. But by their circumstances of birth, or their upbringing and cultural relativity and normativity and kind of a race and class and wealth, and I dropped my apple. That's what I get. I deserve this. But this is the first time I've been happy outside in weeks. Truly. The first time that I've worn no hat, other than the time where I forgot my hat. But even then, I tied my scarf around my head and I looked goofy. Like the pink one you see me wearing, I had that around my head like a headband. It was goofy. This hill sucks, man. This is a very steep hill. But look at these shoes. Look how amazing these are. I live in a very blessed part of society that has access to shoes. And I don't have to do savage native stuff. Savage is a problematic word because it implies that all natives are savages. That's rude. Shouldn't do that. What if they're a soft boy? You can make soft boy cave people memes. Primitives. Also problematic because it implies hierarchy. Any application of hierarchy. Is that right? Is that how they think about it? I don't know. I'm just memeing about Nazbol crap. Implying that the people that I'm mimicking are somehow communist. We're almost there. Oh god. Hey. What a rush. Look how steep it is. Like, this is a drop off. It's like crazy to go up that. Who would do that? Crazy, crazy, crazy. Anyways, now that we're completely alone, truly isolated, we'll talk about dysphoria, sexual disability, transgender kink relations, poly relations, and I mean, I can't give you a solution. There is none. But I can at least give you some tips on how to navigate if you're experiencing it. And here's the thing. People who are non-trans experience dysphoria. There's this meme I saw. It's that sexual dysphoria is interesting in that someone that you think is hot can think you're hot, and you'll still think that they're doing a community service by hooking up with you. And I was like, oh, that's dysphoria. It isn't a self-esteem issue. It's an image issue. Is that a busted old car? Bro, how do you even bust an old car out here? Holy fuck. Is that a headlight? Is that really an old car? Oh my god. Is it multiple cars? Dude. Dude, what? Bruh. Certainly we're not going down there today, but we'll go down there in the summer. There'll be an episode. You stay tuned. I'm serious. You stay tuned. We're going to go down there. Not today. Gotta wait a whole season. On the next season. Watch this, ready? Previously, on Rainbows and Razor Blades. We're going down there. See, look at that. Now we got like the YouTube clip and everything. People are gonna be amazed with that, especially if that's like the first video they see. They'll see dedication because they'll see the difference in seasoning. Because I've been doing this, I just haven't been uploading it. I've been out here talking, giving stupid tours to myself for a long time now. Dysphoria. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. That's why I'm like avoiding it and talking in circles about random nonsense. It's a lot. It's the opposite of euphoria. Kind of. So that's how I conceptualize it. For me, it's this disquieting feeling that I can't quite put my fucking tongue into. It's the place where I can't sink my fingers no matter how many times I fold my ball sack in origami shapes. It's the spiritual agony and anxiety provoked by the inability to properly release or to be able to properly, to me, to my own orientation, interface with my partners. Specifically as it relates to ADHD, I think that sometimes, and I speak only for myself, I have zero evidence to back this up, and I don't have anyone that I've ever talked to about this that can give me feedback. But I think, maybe disproportionately to other trans women even, not to special snowflake myself, but I think that I experience it in a much more disassociative way. That is to say that I'm more removed from my feelings. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it's actually the opposite, and I'm more acutely attached to my feelings and very present with them and very cognizant of it, and therefore I try to escape into, whether it's fiction or it's aspiration dreams of, you know, like, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel. Then I stay up at night and do that, you know, editing it and stuff, because I really believe that I'm doing something. Because it's better than the feeling of the utter desolation. It's being trapped behind glass and no one can hear you. And I don't mean trapped behind glass like this. I conceive of this thing actually as an extension of my own brain. So, not glass. I should get a screen protector for this. You should use a condom. Sage advice from Apple Guy. I think that autistic people have, and I think this is measurable, and I think scientifically has been measured. I think autistic people have disproportional dysphoria to people who are neurotypical, even if they're like divergent in other strange, like, for example, transgender ways. And that's one example of many. And there's probably other parts of dysphoria that are non-sexual. I'm sure that there is. Dysphoric romance is horrible for me. But at least I've learned to kind of navigate romance now. Because, I mean, like, look at me. I'm a guy with long hair and a pink sweater, says the TERFs. But to me, I'm like, my girlfriend and me are going out as girlfriends. Well, I have a partner, not a girlfriend, but it stands, you know. It stands. But as dysphoria can relate to sex is kind of what I discuss. Because I think that that's the most common way that we use it in passing parlance or whatever. You know, in common tongue. K-E-K. LOL, it translates to. What are you scratching about? Trying to get off that tree? Good luck, buddy. You're stuck up there. Me IRL. Thumbnail me IRL. Look at this little guy. Oh, it's not a guy, it's a seed. I was like, I thought it was a spider. It was a seed. Never mind. Dysphoria is the type of feeling that instead of getting a job, you just abandon everything else because it doesn't matter. I mean, like, yeah, money matters, yeah. But I'm blessed enough to not have to really deal with that. I live in a society that kind of, like, cuts me enough support that I don't fucking go die. It's like, it's not that I don't feel... I feel guilty. But I'm not going to let that force me to do something that I'm not capable of doing. Even if other people are forcing themselves and they're not capable either. And that's a whole different discussion about people that have autism in the workforce when they feel disabled and burnt out. I can't imagine much worse fates unless you add dysphoria and transgenderism into that mix. In those ways, and this is why you shouldn't compare pain, it seems like that could be worse than the people that will never have a cell phone. Right? And that's why, again, you shouldn't compare pain. And I bring that up as an example because a lot of the time people mean well. This is kind of part 2, segueing into part 2, is how other people perceive your dysphoria, because I can only tell you how I feel about it. The opposite of euphoria. Everything that's missing, everything that goes wrong, everything that is sad, all that goes into that just bad feeling. It's just like a macro level word, like bad stuff. Bad fucking stuff. Not euphoria. But the way that people respond to that very often is unhealthy. And it's not so much that it's unhealthy for them. It is, but they don't care, and it doesn't really affect them in the same way that, like, if someone calls you a bitch faggot, right? Well, whatever I say is glue, and it goes back to you, or whatever. Yeah, I'm rubber, you're glue. Like, no, that doesn't work. Because actually you're gonna go home and cut yourself. They're gonna go home and forget they even said it because they forgot it when they said it 2 minutes later because they're gonna go say it to someone else because they don't care. Or maybe someone said it to them and they're traumatized. I don't mean to be an apologist for bullies. But the way that other people respond to my dysphoria in particular, and I've seen this throughout the genre of being trans and having dysphoria at large, the way that they respond is either punitively or attemptive curatively. I think that's how I want to say it. That is to say, they either just fucking hate you for it. They find you to be an annoyance and they want you to go away. And they feel just like, who brought the really annoying sad girl who just talks about like, meh, I don't have a vagina. Like, we're trying to talk about, like, I don't know, happy things. Or they view it curatively. That is to say, like, well, have you tried using fingers in your ass? It's like, oh my fucking God, I've been trans for almost 6 years. That's the first time I've ever thought to do that. I'm gonna go try that right now. Can you hold my phone? I'm gonna leave this with you. I'm gonna go try that right now because if it works, you'll have solved all my problems. Right? And like, you'd be amazed at how many times, like, because they're not actually thinking about, like, how to really solve the problem. They're just like, they've identified a problem. They're a low-functioning intelligence organism. They don't really analyze past the superficial, like, because they're not even really asking you, have you tried? They're trying to still understand what it is that you're describing to them. They're not making critique, right? So they're approaching it curatively as just like, oh, you've presented a problem. It's kind of like saying, I'm cold. They're like, oh, well, here's a jacket. Yeah, they're trying to help. Or they're trying to understand how cold you are. Because if they say, well, why don't you try a jacket? Like, either you don't have a jacket or you don't want a jacket. Right? And especially if they think that they can solve that, you know, especially if they're going to feel smart by using a bit of creative thinking, or they're genuinely asking you. But the way that they reference it and frame it in their mind is curatively. It isn't inquisitive, and there's a difference. Because what they're doing is inquiring. They're trying to get to the bottom of it. They're not really asking you, have you tried, you know, to solve your problems by putting fingers up your butt. They're trying to understand. They want you to explain to them why that doesn't work. Because they know it doesn't work, or they really don't, they're idiots. And they've never encountered anything like you in the world, and what you're telling them is just so outlandish that they can't reconcile it. And this is my, I'm using this as one particular example, but again, this extends to the larger range of expressed dysphoria. I'm just using butt stuff as an example because it's easy and it's hilarious. How long have we been live? 21 minutes? We'll be right back because my mouth is probably not even synced. Welcome back to My Mouth Should Be Resynced. I keep forgetting that. The audio desyncs so much. I keep forgetting that. So, and that isn't the only way that people can approach dysphoria, because they can approach it the same way they can approach anything. Like, some people, if you tell them you're happy, they'll just punch you in the mouth and steal your money. They're not even trying to hear that you're happy. Right? Some people, they'll hear that you're happy and they'll be like, oh, you've changed my mood. I'm happy now too. Let's be happy together. Some people are just like, fuck you, you should be sad. There's nothing to be happy about. People can respond to different things in many different ways at many given different times. But I find that the most common, frequent archetypal approaches to my dysphoria, again, it's either pathologicalization, I don't know if that's the right word, They're trying to tell me, it's like, it isn't pathological, right? It's not just like I need to try harder to just love myself. It's not an esteem issue. I used to think it was an esteem issue. I used to think like, why am I such a manic depressive narcissist? When it turns out that I'm just an autistic trans girl. Oh, they're very different things. There may be a lot of overlap. You know, the TERFs properly identify the fact that we beg for attention, but that's only because otherwise we're marginalized and fucking ignored, and if we don't bang pots and pans, the next generation is gonna just get fucking squashed out of existence the same way that you tried to force us out of existence by either curing us being the dysphorics, the autistics, because what they want is they want to specify you. They want specificity. They want to be able to tell you specifically that you're a man or a woman. That's it, because then they can control both of those things. If you try to tell them, I'm not a man or a woman, and I sure as hell don't identify as a fucking tranny, they're going to lose their minds. They won't actually be able to conceive of it. Any more than if you show someone a face tattoo, they can't conceive of it. They're like, a face tattoo? Oh, it's doing that thing. We're gonna have to do a GoFundMe because I'm broke. I don't know. Let's get to the heart of the show. Drum roll, please. Dysphoria and polyamory. I can only speak as a person on hormones, and a queer person on hormones. I can't really speak to the story narrative of anybody else or through the lens of anyone else, and I don't seek to try to speak for a community wider than my own. So with that disclaimer out of the way, for me, I'm not speaking for the poly community. I'm speaking only for how I'm oriented. I'm not monogamous. I don't want just one partner. I don't want to pretend like I want just one partner, or that I should want just one partner, or that there's shame in wanting more than one partner and in more than one different way and on more than one different level hierarchy. There's people who would try to abolish all of those things. They'd be like, you can't do that. That's cheating. Or they'd say like, well, you can't do that. You can't have one that's more important than the other. They're not your real partner. Bizarre thinking. And I just don't, and that's why I give the disclaimer of I don't really seek to speak for any higher authority or literature. I'm just talking me personally. So if you have disagreements about it, it's like, it's not that it's your problem. It's just that like, it isn't a discussion. It's not a debate. I'm not doing politics right now. I'm speaking about my dysphoria as it relates to my personal relationships with my partners. Because it fucking sucks. It's not good. It's not fun. And here's what fucks me up about that and why I bring up the multiple different partners on different levels. Certain of my partners are more compatible with me in certain different given ways, whether it be romantic, whether it be kink, whether it be psychosocial romantic. I don't have words. They're more sapphic with me. Some are more masculine with me. Right now, I only have one partner. Well, I had two, but now I only have one partner and one distant satellite partner that truthfully I'm not attracted to anymore because they transitioned. Not into it. But the dysphoria disproportionately affects some of my relations with different ones of my partners. And that can really fuck up my partners if they're not prepared for that to be my truth. And to go into a relationship to try to change someone else's truth, you can listen to Teal Swan talk about this in some of her videos. I don't know which ones in particular, but I know I've heard her speak of things like this. You can't change people and you shouldn't seek to try because that isn't what life is about. You're a narrative story. Their narrative story is their narrative story. You can tell a story together and you can be part of the same story, but you can't change their story. You shouldn't try to. It won't, not only will it not work, you'll hurt yourself and them in the process. Or they'll hurt you in response. It's very unhealthy. I see it all the time. Actually, I would say I sometimes see it in the majority of year plus 2+ year long relationships that in my estimation should have broken apart long ago. I mean, this feels about the size of a boob. My friend is turned on by trees, so I put that in there for that. Because I think about my partners. I give deep consideration to my partners. I think of them as stories. And I think about how they would best want me in their story. What dialogue would they want? If it's genuine, what dialogue would they want even if it's not genuine and it's just part of a scene? What parts of my body can I share with them in which different parts of ways that they are in enjoyment of, and also that I am in enjoyment of? And that is the part that fucks me up. That's where dysphoria comes from, because, for me at least, because it's a disability. There's no chance that I can offer up my hot, wet little pussy, because it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. And so how do I navigate that? Especially when, like, some of my partners are more ace romantic oriented. Like, this is how it is. If we don't hook up, most of them are only online. And historically, that's always been true for me. How does that weigh itself and against my other partners? Like, that's a part of our emotional structure as tribal instinctive beings that we can learn, I think, to contend against, or make peace with, or even possibly change our mindset towards. But I think biologically, the weight of measurement of emotional significance that we give to our partner's relative love that they show, like, you don't want to not be the favorite. That's not a good place to be. You can learn to not be the favorite, and actually that's the healthiest way, I think, to go about being poly. It isn't to depreciate your value or put yourself down. It'll actually increase your ability to have more partners if that's what you desire, a more diverse cast of partners if that's what you so desire, and a healthier dynamic with the partners that you do have, regardless of if it's more or if it's different. It could be just with one person. This works in monogamy. It works with everything, but especially for poly people. It's really important that you don't try to restrict somebody's ability to play favorites. Because if you're not the favorite, or you're not the favorite in certain ways, yeah, you might be jealous, but you ain't gonna fix them. Now, you can either end things and make peace with that, or you can make peace with that and continue, but either way, you gotta make peace with that. And if you can't reconcile that, you're a bad partner. Or, well, my therapist friend would say, you could work harder and there's accountability. So, hierarchy is an interesting part and a dynamic and aspect of poly. As it relates to ADHD and autism and neurodivergence as a broader category, well, let's take a break so that my mouth is synced up. As it relates to ADHD, autism, and whatever the fuck, neurodivergence as a larger strata of discussion, I think that polyamory and dysphoria... What the hell was I talking about? I genuinely have no fucking idea what I was talking about. I stopped for like one moment and my thoughts went off the rails. What were we talking about? Oh boy, I mean, that's what ADHD is. Any little interruption is just... the train flies off the tracks. It's a flying train, but, like, it's off the tracks. What the fuck were we talking about? We were talking about dysphoria. Oh, okay. Dysphoria and ADHD. I think that disproportionately to most people, dysphoria is felt more intensely by people that are neurodivergent. Maybe that's not true, and it's kind of a stupid thing to even really discuss. Well, maybe it's not. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. It's dangerous. It's dangerous discussion, because if you get it wrong and you start to base your actions around incorrect beliefs, you know, yeah, you're doing the best you can, but, like, so is the ice pick surgeon who was sticking, you know, ice picks up people's eyes and lobotomizing them. I mean, he truly, to the day he died, believed in his own work. To the exclusion of... Oh, I dropped it and I don't even feel like talking again. Let's see, what were we talking about? I don't know, I don't remember. It's 4:30, I should probably go home and get food. I've been walking around out here a while. Alright, I've decided to go the long way. I don't care. I don't care if I pass out and die. But I'm not going to smoke anymore. That's the compromise. I was gone about it. It'll lead to no good. I think people should have the same mindset about drugs as they do with kinky sex. The exact same mindset, because I think it's kind of the same thing, low-key. I think kinky sex is a drug. I think you can get addicted to it because you're playing with neurochemistry. You're playing with the stuff in your brain. And you're doing so in a way that can be unsafe. Oh, or it could be the best thing you've ever experienced. This is kind of cute. And dysphoria is interesting because it's not like a thing, you know? You can't, like, kinky sex is like a thing, right? You can treat it like an object. You can't really treat dysphoria as an object. It's not an object. It can't be manipulated. It can't be maneuvered. It can't be changed. It can only be navigated around. It's a void. It's nothing. It's a black hole. There's no hope. You can pour hope into it. Sometimes that feels good. Like, well, maybe if you just suck my dick a little harder, it'll feel good. It's like, nope. I've tried it at every frequency you can try it, every speed you could try it, every tightness you could try it. It's not the problem. Any more than the 2-finger experiment. I personally did 1 finger twice. Horrible experience each time. Horrible. It isn't to say I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. Ooh, let's see if we can find white yarrow. I feel like there could be some around. Dysphoria and ADHD is a really interesting thing because I think I spoke of this earlier. We rapidly can switch minds and disassociate. We can have our thoughts fractured apart, and I think disproportionately tagged with the genetic markers or whatever it is that when your memory forms, probably using base nucleotides, using similar codon encrypting or whatever constructing nucleotide base pair. Go look up how, like, DNA is made. I'll bet you that's how memories construct themselves. All the way to the smallest level of neurochemistry and electronic movement or whatever. Energy of the universe, man. Who the fuck knows? Nobody alive today. Nobody alive to maybe tomorrow, actually. Hey, maybe someone does know today and I just am not one of them. But however it is that memories are formed, I forget what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter. I'm just saying things that I'm thinking about. I don't even think I sound smart. I'm just saying things. It's like, if I'm gonna have a show, like, you have to talk, you know? Even if you're not saying anything. That's how it goes. Well, you're gonna watch a live streamer who doesn't talk? I don't think so. I'm not, at least. Sometimes I'll watch my favorite streamers on mute. But I don't have any streamers that are exclusively muted. Watching Among Us games on mute, one of the most autistic things that you can do. I watch those games on, you can watch The Imposter. You can watch on ×4 speed, because you can skip the discussions and you can watch just the gameplay. And it's actually very exciting. The fun of the game is the lying, but the gameplay itself is quite entertaining at high levels with good players. It's kind of always the same game. What the hell is the smell? Oh boy, something's dead. That's decomp, unmistakable decomp. Probably like a deer or something. Had that like gut bloat smell to it, not that like could be something else smell to it. Shit. I think we're gonna go up and then back down the same way. I'm realizing now that I kind of bit off a little more than I can chew. I'm going up this way. Maybe this will be where we stop. Under this tree. This is a good tree to die under, I'll tell you that. Yup, good tree to die under. Am I being suicidal, or am I just talking about all these people that are dead under it? Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you because I don't know how I'm feeling about my dysphoria in this moment. I don't know whether one day it'll drive me to death. But if it does, where I would want to do it, hypothetically, because I don't want to die. Not yet, at least. I don't want to get banned. XQC says you can't die on camera, you'll get banned. I don't want to get banned. Anyways, guys, I'm exhausted. I don't even think we covered a single topic that I was supposed to cover. I think I just rambled about being a dysphoric mess. We were supposed to discuss like poly and kink hierarchy, and poly hierarchy. We didn't really get to kink hierarchy, but a kink hierarchy is an interesting one too, because it's like, what if your partner really, really, really likes tickling, but you really, really like waterboarding, right? But your partner's not really into the waterboarding. It's like, how do you navigate that? Will there be tension? Are you really compatible? Does one do it as a service to the other? And if so, what are the repercussions and costs? Or are they not repercussions and they're bonuses and I don't know. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Is this view right here. I'm gonna take a picture and we'll be back after this. Shut. Hi. So, oh dude, look at this. I was gonna say something else, but then I saw this, and I have ADHD. Check this out. Oh, ready? I'm gonna kick it. Well, it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. These are milkweed seeds, and what I kicked was a milkweed pod. Yeah, whatever. Disappointing. 60 seconds, let's go. Hi, welcome back to Rainbows and Razor Blades, a show from the void. By the Gregorian calendar, it is currently the second day of the second month, the month of February, in the year of the Lord, 2022. 222022. By the French Revolutionary calendar of 1792, it is currently the month of Pluvios. And I believe off Dome it's the 20th day, but you'd have to use like a converter to really check if that's accurate, but to me it's the 20th day of the month of rain. So, I don't usually advertise my YouTube channel on my Instagram or other social media because I don't really want my friends like cross-pollinating with my like more broader public like pseudo-anonymous content. It's kind of dangerous to like dox myself, but I do want my friends a chance to see the new episode. The topics are going to be neurodivergence, kink, poly, and being trans and dysphoria as it relates to those topics. So, to continue my discussion of poly and kink, and dysphoria and kink, and dysphoria and poly, just the whole wider spectrum of it. And also as it relates to neurodivergence. It's a lot to contend with. I have a partner tonight, for example, who is supposed to be spending the night in town with me, and I couldn't possibly be feeling less sexual than right now. I mean, I guess I could. Like, I guess I could. But I'm not into it. I'm not interested. It's not what I want to be up to. It's not what I want to be doing. And knowing that about myself took me years to be able to articulate to myself, let alone not gaslight myself to try to be performative where it isn't healthy. That's something that is really important in kink relationships in general, as well as dysphoric relationships. Well, that's a dangerous way to call it. Relationships that have some aspect to them where dysphoria may come into play. That's a better way to say it, because the relationship itself isn't what's dysphoric. Yeah, there are definitely dysphoric relationships. Oh boy, check this out. That's White Yarrow. You guys want to see something? This is the first ever reveal. Check this out. You see it? Check that out. Isn't that sick? Pretty cool, right? Yeah. A woman named Deanna made that tattoo. She's a brilliant artist. Brilliant artist. She's new, you know, and she's already that good. She's only getting better. Every day she's gonna get better. Anyways. So dysphoric poly relationships, man. So I have a partner, again, that's spending the night tonight, and I'm tempted to tell them that I don't want them around, but I know from experience that I don't really mean that. I just don't want sex, and that can be a huge deal breaker for some people, especially if it's a non-romantic or non, like if it's just sex, right? Because there is a differentiation, and oftentimes people will try to guilt you into believing that there isn't, or that one should maintain boundaries surrounding the other, and I don't believe it to be that way. I think that you can have no strings attached, completely anonymous, and completely, well, I don't want to call it useless, because I don't believe that that's ever the case, useless sex. I say I don't want to, and then I do it anyway. That's what dysphoria makes you do. But I've learned from experience, like, if I'm not feeling it, don't try to perform in those ways. I don't really want to try to bang my girl doggy style as she calls me daddy. I had that. I was 19 years old. She was, I think, also 19 at the time, maybe 18. But she was, yeah, she would have had to have been a year younger than me. But I mean, it doesn't matter. We were freshmen in college together, and so we were hooking up. And that was a bit of a nightmare. Definitely a bit of a nightmare. Because she wanted... First of all, she had been banging, like, full-grown men. I wasn't one of them, right? But that's just something that she had gotten up to. I was over there trying to fix her. I don't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to, like, comfort her. Trying to tell her things are going to be okay. I was doing everything wrong. I was completely autistic. No idea how the world worked, no conception of what or who I was, or who or what anybody else was. Had I met her 2 years, 3 years prior, well, as a grown man, I wouldn't have hooked up with her, but there are men who did. And I thought that was fucked up. Boy, was she willing. Because when I encountered her, she wanted it a very specific way that she was used to getting from, like, grown fucking men. That I just, first of all, was not even aware of, right? And and she's like, fuck me, daddy. I'm like, what's happening? Truly, that was the question, like, what's happening? And then, to make it worse, because she was a bitch. She was a crazy bitch. She was belittling. And we hadn't discussed that. There was no conception that we could have discussed that. It was just something that was happening to me, and I was just being bullied. Right? Now, years later, 10 years, full decade later, because like I said, I was probably like 19 back then, 18, 19. I was a kid. How old are college kids? I don't know. Neither of us could buy alcohol, but she could always get some because she fucked older dudes. Well, you can't see it, but it ran. It's a little mouse. Pretty cute stuff. And, you know, even at that time, I knew it was problematic what she was doing, but I didn't know how to, like, separate myself from that unhealthiness. I could only disassociate and try to orient in my own existence without really understanding what I was encountering in my own existence. It was... And autistic people definitely struggle with this. I meet a lot of autistic people who have had very limited sexual experience because, unlike me, they don't throw themselves to wolves and don't go through these bizarre learning curve rituals of forcing themselves to do things. Now, I also hear about that, obviously, in the trans community. I think it's a universal experience in the trans community, and I was kind of flabbergasted to find it also in the autistic thing. But I guess it's hard for me to separate, for me, what dysphoria is and what autism is. They're to me personally inseparable at many points. There's many points of intersection. Anyways, so I'm banging this chick, and like I'm telling myself she's my girlfriend, but actually she's just some slut that's fucking me. And like that's great because like we kind of acted like we were girlfriends, I guess, you know. But she wanted me to be her boyfriend, and I don't want to be her boyfriend. I told her that. She fucked up my head so bad I can't even explain it to you. She used to like pretend to be my friends on social media type of crazy. She was fucking crazy, and she seriously messed up my trust perceptions and boundaries. Because I hadn't learned that I even had to discuss those with people. I didn't know you could. Because I grew up with a narcissist who just washed my boundaries out. And with autism, that led me to not really be able to kind of observably, repeatedly demonstrate to myself that I was capable of doing that. Because one, I was getting bombarded with a narcissist who was just washing my boundaries out. And two, I kind of already have a muted sense of perception to that because I'm kind of autistic. I mean, look at this hat. You know? I don't know what's going on. And certainly my brain wasn't fully developed back then. I feel very differently now. I have a lot more emotive self-control and a lot more intellectual regulation. We gotta take a break because my battery's about to die. So I'm forcing myself. I'm not raping myself, but I'm forcing myself to perform in these ways that are just like, they're truly, and I mean this, traumatizing me. Especially like the ejaculative process, because I was so disconnected from that. My mind was like screaming, no, 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 no. And even once I graduated out of, well, I didn't graduate out of college, but I graduated out of that girl and into my next girlfriend, who was a lot healthier. And we didn't have those problems. We had the problem where being nice eventually wasn't enough for her. And she wanted more from her partners, and I couldn't perform, and so she had to ditch me. And because she was so emotionally attached to me, she had to clean break, and she just broke up with me one day after like a full year. And you know, I kind of understood that, even if I couldn't back then put words to that, because I hadn't like fully evolved or flourished. Oh, this is, dude. Back then, like I didn't know a damn thing about anything. Today I do. And even back then, emotionally, I replied to that happening in the same way that I would reply to it today, with understanding, deep core understanding. Even if it's like not, now it's intellectualized and rationalized or whatever the process is of like being an adult and being able to process things. But back then, the unprocessed feelings, interestingly enough, were not dysphoric, because she just wanted better sex. And like I was just like, yeah, I can't give that to you, honey. It ain't what I want either. Because what you're asking me, what your better is not what my better looks like. My better is disabled. And that's a really shitty thing to have a discussion about. And that's something that I didn't even start to have discussions with people about until after I had taken 3 full celibate years. One of them locked in, actually the 4th year was celibate. I did the mistake where you squat pee, which I actually don't do for dysphoria reasons. It helps with that, I found that out. But that's not why I do it. I do it for 360 like predator detection, because I don't want to be like seen, I guess. You know, you don't want to be perceived, you know. So I'm pretty careful when I pee. Who's around? but I did the mistake. I forget that it's gonna drip down my leg if I don't like push and shake. Because I got the wrong parts installed, bruh. Anyways. So I was talking about my relationships. And this was before I even knew what polyamory was. Like, I always thought it'd be cute to have 2 girlfriends, but I couldn't even keep 1 girlfriend. I was clueless. I didn't even understand that, like anything. I didn't understand anything. I was completely blind to what I was doing, who I was, and who other people were, or even what other people were. Really. I really had no concept. And so I'm banging this chick. And it's going pretty well. Except for the fact that I feel horrible. She's not having a great time. She's not having a good time. She's not having a great time. And that I'm feeling traumatized, confused, nauseous, dizzy. But other than that, it's going great, right? It's going great. This is, I've seen it on the internet. I've been told about it. Every guy had always told me about it. I'm like, I'm doing the thing. Little did I know that the thing that I was doing was creating dysphoria. And it sucked, and that's why I view it as a disability, or I view my own sex transness as a disability. Transness is a trigger word, by the way, because it isn't what I'm doing. I view my dysphoria as a disability, and people tell me that I'm trans because I take hormones. Yikes. But I'll tell you, my vagina is definitely disabled. Where is it otherwise? I'm really asking, where is it? It's not inside of me. I don't stick things up my pee hole to try to emulate it. That wouldn't work. So I did not know how to navigate relationships back in the day at all. Not even a little bit. Now that I do, I can tell you a whole bunch about it. I can tell you how to communicate with a partner. I can tell you what communication is supposed to sound and look like. I can tell you the reasons why you're supposed to communicate. But as a child, I did not know any of that stuff. Oof, doing stunts out here. Doing boy shit. Because girls can't do stunts. I was the only boy in my class that did stunts, which meant I was the only kid in the school that did any damn stunts. That's not true. There was a couple other stunt kids. They were maniacs, dude, because they were boys. I was the only girl that did stunts, but I was a boy, so it doesn't count. Wah, wah. Oh, they're burning the damned. I'm gonna smell the yarrow that I tucked in here earlier. Pretty smart, huh? So, dysphoria, I mean, it's life-ruining if you let it ruin your life. But eventually, I think a lot of us do figure out what it is that we're experiencing, and then we figure out kind of how to solve it, maybe, and then we really learn about what it is that we're doing and why, from the outside, or from the inside out rather than the outside in. Like, you can read about being trans before you take HRT. I think every trans woman that I've ever talked to has done that. I ended up reading up about it the most once these started growing. I hadn't really read about it before that. I had just been like, I don't want to talk to those people, I want to learn on my own. Because that's how I am about everything, because if I'm not that way, and I can't figure things out on my own, I can't trust anybody else. I can't trust anybody else. Because their perceptions are so completely, radically different than mine. And also I grew up with an insecure attachment to my familial structure that I couldn't trust them either. And in fact, I was actively subverted by that, what is supposed to be guardianship ended up being prisoner. Oh, we'll be right back.